I'm Sarah Black.
And I'm Theo Black.
And in this series, we revisit the movies of our childhood and ask ourselves, does this hold up?
Why did we like it?
Was it really any good?
Join us on this journey of amusement.
Self-discovery.
Mostly awkwardness. This is so uncomfortably hot. What movie did we watch?
Baby Boom!
Whee!
So once upon a time, I was a very young girl, and you didn't exist yet.
Nowhere.
And, we would go rent movies from the warehouse.
The warehouse?
The warehouse! There was a warehouse on Lincoln Boulevard, and we loved it. And even...
For those who don't know, this is the name of the establishment. It's not just like a warehouse.
Yeah, no. And even post your birth, we went, and you remember it as a small child.
Yes.
And so at some point I must have rented Baby Boom, because it came out in, I think, 87. Did we say 87? That seems wrong. So in 1987, I was 5. And our parents were not spending money taking me to the movie theater as a 5-year-old to see Baby Boom. I probably saw it shortly after, and like The Mask for you, I probably mostly watched it like 6, 7, 8. I think I was a little baby crazy, and then you got born. I was like, oh.
These horrible creatures.
Yeah, oh, no.
No.
Actually, I still like babies, and watching the movie, I realized that, like, she never gets past baby in the movie.
Yeah.
And that's my problem with babies.
They get older.
They become children. Children are horrible.
I was the youngest. No, that's not true. I don't know what to do with children or babies or anyone under the age of 13. Teenagers, fine.
Yeah.
The rest of it, don't have any clue.
Yeah. Mostly you water them and feed them and make sure they get enough sun. That might be plants. So what were your expectations going into this movie?
Well, hearing the name, I literally knew nothing because it is not a famous movie. So not much. Once I saw the cover of it, which is Diane Keaton holding a baby, I was like, businesswoman plus baby equals comedy. I assumed a businesswoman would get a baby.
Your cousin Andrew's, Elizabeth.
Which is actually pretty much what I got. But that's literally the only expectations I had. That, and it's an 80s movie, so I was expecting, I don't know, I guess saxophones.
Were you really expecting saxophones?
I think in retrospect, I didn't know what I was expecting, but now that I've watched this movie, I was like, yes, saxophones are a thing of the 80s.
Yeah. I actually remembered most of the movie.
Yeah.
I didn't remember necessarily dialogue or stuff like that, but I definitely remembered, like, the rough plot of it. And yeah, 80s.
She works 5 to 9. She makes 6 figures a year, and they call her the Tiger Lady.
80s.
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 So you'd already kind of guessed the plot.
Yes.
What did you think of the movie?
So it's kind of a cute movie. It has a certain kind of depth for being sort of a, generic rom-com. I don't know that the film itself is doing anything particularly new. It feels like sort of a big budget movie that they put together. No one was doing nobody's like doing weird long shots. So, I don't know, it's cute. The dialogue is weird.
All right, tell Steve at 9 is fine for dinner and see if you can get us into Jams. If they don't have a good table, try and get something else. Ken, I need the P&Ls on Atlantic Overseas. I also need the latest ZBBs and PBBs. And Robin, I want you to get me the CEO of IBC ASAP.
It's an hour and 50 minutes, and it could easily lose 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Maybe even 15 to 20 minutes without killing it. The thing that I didn't remember that well, that I didn't think worked as well, was the romance part.
Right?
She and Sam Shepard don't have chemistry together.
Look, I know we saw each other, so it'd be kind of stupid for me to ignore you, right?
No, really, it wouldn't. Go ahead, please, ignore me. You have my permission.
No, and I'm not really sure why they're together. I guess he's just an attractive guy she likes.
I think it's so that she can have everything at the end.
Yeah, I appreciate that part of the story in terms of, like, plot, but that feels See, here we are. Plot driving the story, not
Yes.
character driving the story.
Yes. And then they had things like James Spader is in it.
Yeah.
And I love James Spader.
So funny to see him. He's so young.
But especially in the 80s and 90s, he's like code for bad guy.
Hey, Ken, this is my office.
He's gonna be that Weasley guy every time. It's not
Yeah.
really till like Sex, Lies, and Videotape and Stargate and
Then he becomes the weird sex guy.
yeah, and Secretary, but like he's not the hooker with a heart of gold. He's the slightly kinky pervert with a heart of gold kind
Right.
of
That's
character.
who James Spader becomes.
Yeah.
He's not there yet.
No, he's just the Weasley guy, but he's not really there to be anything except like a slight menace to her job.
Yeah.
So, just to kind of back us up a little bit, the beginning is exactly what you said. She somehow inherits a baby from her cousin. She's a businesswoman, we're told in a narration that only appears at the beginning of the movie and doesn't go anywhere.
They call her the Tiger Lady.
And there is some good comedy, I think, with what it would be like to suddenly have a baby if you're not interested.
How much do you weigh anyway?
Yeah, it's cute and it made me laugh. It's especially good juxtaposed against the partners have just like started talking about making her a partner.
I want you to become a partner.
She has to work like 80 hours a week. I don't want to work 80 hours a week.
No, that sounds miserable.
That sounds nuts. But I guess you get a lot of money if you do that, hopefully.
And she has a nice place, her and Harold Ramis, you know.
Yeah.
Whoa!
Speaking of the 80s.
Speaking of the 80s.
And the way she there's some good physical comedy with the way she carries the baby,
All she wanted was her mama.
I am not her mother.
which kind of
Yeah.
works pretty well.
She's kind of a physical comedian in some of this stuff.
Yeah, and there's definitely like this awkwardness as a modern audience watching some of the gender politics.
Look, you know that normally I don't think of you as a woman.
Where she's called young lady and asked if she's going to be able to do this job, if she's going to end up having a baby with her boyfriend.
Yeah.
But we'll get to it later, I suppose. I think it makes you worried, but then it's actually going to make a comment about that.
Yeah.
There's some real stereotypes in this movie.
The characters, other than Diane Keaton, are slightly flat. Considering it's like not doing a lot, it hits the note fine for each character. James Spader is just the Weasley bad guy. That's fine, but it's not really deep.
Well, it's like everybody's a caricature. Like she goes to give the baby to an orphanage.
Yeah.
Not an orphanage. She goes to give her up for adoption.
Yes, that's not an orphanage.
No.
This is Mr. and Mrs. White.
And like the couple they find is just like, I wanted a boy. Like
Yeah.
this weird, like American Gothic style.
Yeah.
If you don't know what American Gothic is,
Here it is.
like that nobody would give a beautiful baby girl. Like so many people want baby girls.
Yeah.
Or boys, but I think baby girls are even more. You're not gonna.
Yeah.
Like,
This is Mr. and Mrs. White.
and then you have Harold Ramis and her breaking up because she decides to keep the baby, and
Yeah.
that just happens in a scene.
I appreciate what you're going through. I do. But for me,
Go ahead.
I
You
just,
can be honest. You what?
And
Yeah.
then she's by herself, and she doesn't seem to really regret it.
Well, her and Harold Ramis don't seem to be that much in love. Theirs is a relationship of convenience, it seems
Yeah.
like. So there's that. And in a way, I sort of appreciated that Harold Ramis was like, look, you're great, and I understand. Don't want a kid.
Yeah.
But they do it so quick.
But that's the thing. I appreciate that as something that could happen, and like the kind of choice you'd have to make. That's like this really heartrending moment that's just like gone over, and then you have like the weird nannies where
Oh,
one's
yeah.
an extremist Christian
And what brought you to New York?
The Lord.
Uh-huh.
and one's an extremist Muslim,
I will teach your daughter to properly respect a man.
Yeah.
and one's an extremist German.
I don't argue, and I do not like to be argued with.
She is a Northern European stereotype.
Yeah. And so you have these weird...
Oh, cameo of one of the women in Orange is the New Black. It was funny seeing her much younger.
I came here to live with a guy, but that didn't work out.
So you have, like, these moments that could have had kind of depth and feeling, and then you just have these kind of totally for laughs, but not to produce any other...
There's not a lot of character in that section for, like, the nannies all have their jokes, but there's not a lot for Diane Keaton to do to really show her character.
Yeah, she's just kind of reacting to that.
It would have been funnier, like, or maybe it would, sorry, not funnier. It would have made more character moments if she had, like, instead hired a bunch of different babysitters and had to fire them each in a row.
Yeah.
And you'd gotten to see her interact with all of them. Because when, right after this, she has a babysitter who she finds naked with a man.
Yeah.
And she's like, he's just, she says, he's just leaving, and Diane Keaton says, and you are too.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of a moment of character. They could have done that. Instead, did montage.
She's still a tough lady. She's still kind of trying to do her best. I'm sure as a 6, 7-year-old, a lot of that just went over my head. Like...
Just the naked people in the apartment probably didn't really...
Yeah, I do remember that, actually. I did remember.
Yeah.
But I don't... You know how, like... You take things very surface level as a kid. So it's like, of course I knew they were naked together and had probably had sex, but, like, I didn't think about that. It was like...
You're not supposed to be naked in this situation.
Well, yeah, I mean, no, I know all of that, but, like, the greater existential meaning of it all just went over my head.
Yes.
Although I was kind of an existential child.
Just a little bit.
And then it's hard for me because I still appreciate parts of this movie, even though on rewatch it's kind of mediocre. Then it's not working.
Not working. The head boss guy's like, no, you can't do this. You're losing your edge.
She seems to have lost her edge, so she decides to go with the dream she'd had.
Hello? Yes, I'm calling about the 62-acre Vermont estate. I was wondering, is it still for sale?
And moves to Vermont. This is about at the midpoint of the movie, and they had a fair amount of comedy before that was funny, but didn't move the story. Like that whole bit where she goes to the playground and the other moms are all competing, and then she goes to, like, the gym, and, like, there's this tiny little boy holding on to the ring.
Gotta find me a better understanding. Every day keep forgetting.
And it's funny, but it has no bearing in the story.
It's a little too long, because you can appreciate, like, oh, this is what it means to be a mom. That's what that part of the story is. You don't need both of those scenes, and there's even another scene, A Mommy and Me or something.
Yeah.
You could use one of those, or you can condense.
Yeah, because those are real things. I mean, I have friends who are parents to small children, and, people are still competitive and waitlisting fetuses to get into schools and stuff like that. So I get the topicalness of it.
Yeah.
But as far as the story of this businesswoman's journey, it doesn't change anything.
No. It's background noise.
And the comedy is, again, kind of what you mentioned, just her reacting to things.
Yeah.
So she moves to this farm in Vermont.
And this is where I'm going to interject very quickly. This part of the story was real boring for me. Yeah. Because right towards the end and towards when she gets there, until she starts having everything break, there's another montage. Lots of montages in this movie. But there's almost no humor in this montage. This isn't the babysitters where we at least get humor in the montage. It's just her getting a car. She buys a car. She drives to Vermont. She's in Vermont. The house looks pretty.
A little bit out of shape. This isn't exactly the rowing machine. Yeah. Oh, no, the oars. Oh, no. Oh, God, I need those.
Yeah, it definitely had some pacing problems. This is a problem. This is what happens when you like something when you're young.
Yeah.
I like a lot of the ideas in this movie, even though it doesn't quite, the depiction of the ideas doesn't live up.
Yeah.
So she moves to Vermont, and it's beautiful and wonderful. But you know what? Vermont's freezing cold. She has nothing to do all winter but make applesauce.
Well, actually, I'm making baby applesauce.
But this is where I like it. Like, she does grow to appreciate it eventually. But she still also likes New York.
Yeah.
And so, I like all of that.
her story is interesting.
Yeah, that said, again, it's like there's too many... Like, there's this whole scene with yuppies coming in to buy, like, 12 things of applesauce each, which is just all unlikely.
Yeah.
But while we're at it, baby Chris Noth as yuppie husband who has, like, a line or two. But the pacing is off again, where it's a little too slow. It's like it needs to show us 6 things when maybe 3 would have been fine.
Yeah, the pacing is off. Plus, we haven't even talked about the dialogue that much yet.
Yeah.
And while funny, again, there are funny sections. Some of the time, I'm not really sure what Diane Keaton was doing.
She's smiling and trying to act confident while kind of saying nonsense.
Oh, no. It's great.
I like some of her freakouts in the country.
I'm not prepared for wells to run dry. I just want to turn on the faucet and have water. I don't want to know where it's coming from. Ah!
You know, Annie Hall was Diane Keaton's big movie, and I have seen it, and it's been ages.
I haven't seen it. What?
I mean, I think that's a little bit the comedy of Annie Hall, though, is that kind of nervous edginess, but it doesn't really translate. But she's not really given very good dialogue.
No.
She's funniest when she's freaking out.
Yeah.
But a businesswoman can't always be freaking out.
Well, she plays the confident part okay. You know, definitely sometimes you're like, oh, solid, confident businesswoman. Like, I can believe that. But there's so much of it mixed with that nervousness.
Yes. And then she meets Sam Shepard.
Hi. I'm Dr. Cooper.
And, like, I think we've mentioned already, I like Sam Shepard as an actor. I was in Thunderheart, which is a Val Kilmer movie that no one appreciates. That might be...
a bad movie.
That might be a To Childhood and Beyond.
Oh.
See how I feel about that one now. But he's been in a lot of things. He's not a bad actor. She's not a bad actress. They just don't...
Yeah, and they sort of like each other for plot.
Yeah.
The plot's like, oh, love interests.
And at that point, she becomes incredibly successful selling applesauce.
Yeah. And then we get the resolution of the film, which in a way almost happens fairly quickly, considering...
Her old company calls her up to offer to buy out her applesauce company.
Yes.
And so she gets to go to New York, which is like the fantasy she's been holding on to, even though she's kind of grown used to the country.
And she's been talking about moving back.
Yeah, and breaking Sam Shepard's heart a little bit.
Oh, poor Sam.
Well, so I guess this means you won't be free for bingo tonight down at the fire station?
And so she goes back, and they make her this great deal, and she's in the bathroom, and she's like, yes. And as she's walking back, I think the moment is supposed to be, she kind of realizes that now that she's been given what she thought she wanted, she doesn't need it anymore. And I appreciate that. And she tells them, like...
I mean, I was very excited about this offer, but, you know, I don't think I really thought about what it meant. And you see, I'm not the tiger lady anymore. I mean, I have a crib in my office and there's a mobile over my desk, and I really like that.
I like the ending. I like that message of that. And she tells, you know, the business exec who doesn't know all his grandchildren's name, well, no, I want to have my cake and eat it too.
Yeah, because the whole point of that they set up, like they do, it's funny, it's one of those movies that has all the pieces, but they don't quite come together right. They set up that she wants a farm in the beginning, that she has that romantic idea. They set up that she's going to have to make sacrifices. They set up that everyone has to make sacrifices, that you just can't get it all, that you just can't have it all. And I even think of Katharine Hepburn, who famously said, you know, she didn't have kids because you just can't have it all. And what this movie is about is, yes, you can have it all.
I think I'm doing pretty good on my own. To be quite frank, if the food chain can put Country Baby on every supermarket shelf in America, so can I.
That's probably what I loved as a little girl, is the notion of, like, just being able to get everything you want.
There's nothing we can do to change your mind.
Nope. The fantasy of it is a good fantasy.
Yeah.
And the saxophone music is a lot of fun.
There's a lot of saxophone music.
Let's play some. you did have a criticism of it where you felt she had to leave the male-centric business world before she could become successful.
Yes. My critique is that it's not a big critique because she becomes successful and they try to buy her out, and it really is a female empowerment film. But she does have to leave the male-centric business area world thing and do her own thing, which is really, baby products, which is associated with, traditional women in the household thing, to become successful. Or she only becomes, she's successful in both, but she only becomes successful with a kid in the one that's more female-oriented. And I feel like that's a bit of a cop-out, not like a huge one, but I feel like, well, why couldn't she have it all in the business realm? And I understand, she worked 80 hours and it's really hard to have a kid when you do that.
Oh, bye. Bye-bye, Elizabeth. Bye-bye. Bye.
I think it's interesting because I don't want to give it credit for being that sophisticated, but we're still having a lot of questions about women in the workforce and how to support women and whether it's good for men too.
Yeah.
And working 80 hours a week isn't, who's that good for?
Yeah.
Fritz, do you remember that night when you told me about the things that I was going to have to give up and the sacrifices that I was going to have to make? Well, I don't want to make those sacrifices. And the bottom line is, nobody should have to.
I feel like some kind of point is being made there that, maybe this job that she gave up isn't good for anyone.
I just wish there could have been something in the story about it not being so female-centric of an arena she had to enter to succeed.
The thing is, there was kind of two options. You could have told the story where she forces them to change.
Yeah.
Instead, she went off and started her own thing where she got to be in charge and empowering. Which is more empowering? I don't know.
I don't know. It's a tough one. Really, we're getting a lot of depth. See, that's the part of the movie that's interesting, and we're going into a lot of depth about it. But it's ultimately kind of just a comedy.
I need a drink. Okay, I'm leaving you here for a few minutes, so I'm trusting you not to touch anything.
So, Sarah, how did you feel about this movie, watching it again?
I appreciate what I liked about it as a little girl, which was the idea that I could have a big girl job and a baby and a farm. At the end of the day, there's nothing special about this movie, except that when I was a little girl, I really liked it. Sometimes that happens.
Sometimes that happens. Fun 80s movie.
Yeah. Not that fun an 80s movie.
Not that fun an 80s movie.